Thank you for your time, Honorable Minister. It's great to have you here. Minister Keyamo, you have over time emphasized at various fora your 5-point agenda and the need for reforms in the aviation sector. What specific regulatory changes are we looking to expect? And what are the future plans for your ministry in line with the renewed agenda of President Bola Tinubu?
Thank you. Let me quickly run through the 5-point agenda and put them in proper perspective so that Nigerians will understand what we're talking about. The first, of course, would be safety, because this industry is all about safety of the traveling public. And so our first point agenda is that our first agenda, within our first point agenda, is that we should enforce strict compliance with, our regulations. In other words, as minister, I should be able to supervise the regulatory agencies for them to strictly comply and enforce their safety standards to the extent that we move up, the ratings in ICAO, because the International Civil Aviation Organization rates you and rates a country in accordance with how they enforce their regulations, their safety standards, and all of that. So that's our first, agenda. The second one, of course, will be to improve infrastructure across the country. We know that the size of the country, the traveling public we have, the kind of economy we have, the ambition we have as a people, they do not match the type of infrastructure we see at our airport. So, yes, we are still not proud of the type of infrastructure we have compared to world standards, global standards that we see all over the world where we travel. So that, of course, is the second objective that we set for ourselves. The third one will be to support our local operators. Over the years, there has been no deliberate government policy. They may have been doing it silently, but previous governments have not brought it to the fore that, look, let us have it as a focal point that we should support local operators and ensure that they survive, their businesses survive, and hold them to, at the same time, hold them to the best international standards. And if you look at the history of the aviation in Nigeria, we have had very high mortality rates of airlines. I don't know whether you are old enough or those listening are old enough. For those who are old enough to know, in the last 40, 50 years, more than 100 airlines, 100, have come and gone. They just died. From Okada to Concorde to Zenith Airline to Chanchangi to Bellevue to ADC. I can keep reeling out names. They just came and died, and I began to ask the question, why did they go under? Many of them within a short period of time. And I felt it was time for government to put them in focus, how we can allow, support them to survive. And of course, the fourth one will be to enhance capacity, train and retrain our personnel within the aviation sector. Be they engineers, be them instructors, regulators, just human capacity development within the aviation sector. And of course, the fifth one will be to ramp up revenues. Not as much as imposing more burden on the traveling public, but to also plug all leakages, all loopholes, and to ensure that we maximize our potential to raise revenues. So these are the 5 areas we put in focus as we took over office, and we have been religiously, conscientiously, assiduously pursuing this 5-point agenda. And I'm sure you talked about regulation. Just to quickly say there that some of our actions you have seen recently regarding safety of Nigerian public, taking no chance. That is our policy within that. That's our own, philosophy behind that. Take no chance.
I was just about to ask
So when the people say, well, in fact, some people are trying to educate me about interference, looking at the provisions of the law, and I was laughing. I said, look, do you know the law more than myself? For me, as minister, I take no chance when it comes to safety of the flying public. I am responsible to Nigerians, not to so-called experts who are in their homes. It is Nigerians. I took an oath of office to be responsible to Nigerians and to my employers. And I must serve them diligently and not to listen to rumbles coming from some corrupt elements behind me. I will not do that. So long as my push, so long as my insistence is that, look, enforce your regulations. There must be strict compliance with regulations. Make sure we are safe. So long as I am within that precinct or pushing towards that end, I've done nothing wrong. If my interference, in quotes, is to say, no, water down your regulation. Please don't ban them so much. Don't don't be too strict on them. If that is the case, then you can blame me. You can blame me.
So how do you tread that fine line between what some have termed executive overreach and the independence of certain regulatory bodies?
The fine line is very simple. This is your regulation. You should do this when there are concerns. Enforce it. It's as simple as that. So my duty, the fine line, again, is that, let me draw the line, it's a very thin line. My duty is not to interface with the off-takers. I call them off-takers? Yes, the eventual people who were supposed to oversee. My duty is to supervise the regulator. My duty is to supervise the supervisor and to ensure that the supervisor does what he ought to do. And so the minister should not keep quiet in the face of obvious lack of action by the supervisor. I should be able to tell the supervisor, what are you doing in the face of all of this? Do something. And the do something I'm telling you about is to save the lives of Nigerians.
Who you are ultimately responsible to.
You know why? You know Nigerians. If anything happens today, whose head will they call for?
The buck stops at your table.
This might be the minister. They don't even know the DGs of these agencies. This is the minister they know. They said the minister should resign immediately. He has failed. That's what they would say. So we are facing a paradox here. It's an obvious paradox we are facing. And I will not be caught in that web. I have my very strong views about it. The day I leave office, they shall come and do, I won't be here forever. The day I leave office, they can come and do whatever they like, run it according to their expert ideas. But hey, the law is the law. And they will not teach me how to interpret the provisions of the law. They will not. That is my style. That is my methodology. That is why I'm not like any other minister. That's why I am Festus Keyamo, and I must be Festus Keyamo.
So thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You spoke about infrastructure and building capacity for our local airlines. And it's very obvious that there are a lot of things involved, from what the airlines tend to be the low pricing of tickets, which they are sort of forced into, to high costs of inputs like aviation fuel and all that. And then it's also about the commercial viability of the Nigerian aviation space. I know I've also heard you during your retreat with Mr. President, where you spoke about ensuring that our airports they're not just airports, terminals. You're talking about creating hubs. So how do we merge these two things together? And I must say something, it's impressive the work you did for Airpeace, ensuring that the United Kingdom government respected the BASA agreement between Nigeria and them. We're seeing Airpeace do something now, which is integrating other states into their Lagos operations as a hub to their London office. So how do you intend, to merge the concerns of the airlines in terms of their commercial concerns that, the price of inputs are expensive, with, the need to expand the Nigerian aviation sector? Are we looking at the ministry, ensuring that some airlines merge together to make sure they're bigger? Or are we looking to open up the basket to other, airlines? And what are your plans for the airports?
It's a multi-pronged approach we have to that issue, because it's not just one approach that will solve that problem. One, you want to make sure they survive, they are viable, commercially. And then, of course, you want to ensure through that the flying public also, they have the best deal. People have the best deal in terms of pricing of tickets and all of that. Now, you just mentioned one of them. To support them, make sure they survive, support their bid to challenge on international routes, so that we don't leave our international routes at the mercy of foreign airlines who come here to exploit our people. So let me talk about infrastructure, because you rolled 3 or 4 questions into one. So I'm trying to separate all of them. The first one is infrastructure. What do we do about infrastructure? There is no ministry now that is an infrastructure ministry that has the capacity by the envelope system to develop those big projects. The envelope system means, of course, the budgeting process, because resources are always, in fact, we're always running deficit budgets. So if we're running a deficit budget, how are we going to ensure that we carry out those big projects? It's not possible by the budgeting system. And so those infrastructure ministries are FCT, Works, Housing, Blue Economy, Aviation, maybe 1 or 2 others. Those are the infrastructure ministries. It is only by way of PPPs we can progress along that line. We can turn things around. So for those who complain that our infrastructure, they are decrepit, the airports are not as good as they should be, they are not meeting international standard. I've just been 8 months in office. There's nobody who can build big infrastructure within even 2 years or 3 years. And that's a fact. What you can do is to maintain what you have, make them a bit, comfortable and serviceable and customer friendly while you work on the big issues. So for the low-hanging fruits, how do we maintain what we have seen on the ground? First of all, we are trying to change the attitude of the civil servants who are supposed to, run these airports. The Federal Airport Authority. We're trying to change their mentality. I've said in another program that most of them are not primed by their training, by their lackadaisical attitude to raise, even by the motivation they give to them, the kind of salaries they receive. They are not primed to raise their game and make these airports as customer friendly as they should be. So we are looking at bringing in the private sector, which we have started doing already. With the collaboration of the Interior, Minister of Interior, we both collaborated on that. We have changed the arrival wing of the E-wing of the international airport. Shell came in and did a lot for us there. I'm sure you have seen it.
Yes.
That's a beautiful entrance now into Nigeria, the wing D, the wing E, arrival, not departure, arrival. So we are concentrating on D, and we are talking to 1 or 2 people now, corporate bodies. They are just about to start their own, but Shell has done that for us. They're about to start on wing D, both departure and arrival, and of course the arrival of E, because we have just done with the departure of E, we have done the arrival of E. So those are the low-hanging fruits we are looking at, just to turn things around. But the bigger picture is that we need to turn these terminal buildings to proper hubs, and that will mean a complete reconstruction of most of these international airports. I've said before that what we have are just terminal buildings. The runway will just come, you land, you terminate, you go home. We don't have a proper hub, aviation hub, complete with an ecosystem. 5-star hotels, rails coming in, conference centers and all of that. We don't have it. Where people can even come into Nigeria, they don't have to go into the town like it happens in so many places. They stay within the metropolis. They do everything they want to do, hold their conferences, everything, 5-star hotel, do their shopping, and they fly out of the country. That's a proper aerotropolis and a proper hub we're looking at. So we're trying to attract private people to do that for us. International investors, they're talking with us. The Arabs are talking with us. The Chinese are talking with us. The Americans are talking with us. So many of these investors. We are spoiled for choice, but we'll go for the best. So we want to do that in terms of the long-term plan. I've talked about the short-term plan. That's for infrastructure. But then you now rolled it into the issue of the airlines and how commercially viable that they can be. Now, the third objective we talked about is supporting them. How do we support them? Government does not have to bring out money all the time to say, just like Obama did when he came to power, when the auto companies were going down, automobile companies are going down, and he had to bring out bailout funds. We don't have to bring out bailout funds. We can support the airlines by creating the enabling environment, by showing government's presence in their international negotiations, like we did in Airpeace. So we used Airpeace as an example on what we want to do with private airlines, to show that it's not about bailout funds. It's about government firm support to make it happen for them. And not only Air Peace, we are also doing it for other airlines now. You will see results as time goes on. We're just 8 months in office, but we will see results as time goes on. Air Peace is just the first result you have seen, but you're going to see so many other results. And so when I came, Air Peace had been on this issue for 7 years. They couldn't break into that market. And when I came, I dusted the BASA. I said, because these BASAs, they are not negotiated by private airlines. So they don't own the routes. It's Nigeria that owns the routes, because Nigeria negotiates these BASAs. It is BASAs are negotiated between sovereigns, different sovereigns. So it is when you get your BASAs and your reciprocal rights, you can now give it to your local operators and ensure that they are enforced as per, the foreign entities. So we did that. We wrote several letters. We traveled back and forth because we knew that was one of the things we can use to bring down prices. The only thing that can bring down prices in any market is competition. It's not monopoly. British Airways, they have enjoyed that route for so many years unchallenged. Unchallenged. There were attempts by local airlines in the past to run the route, but they muzzled them out of the route. Yes. And that's why Nigerians were buying tickets for as much as 15 million at a point, 15, 16 million naira. Business class route, just for to and fro. So we saw that was an issue we could quickly resolve. And so we put our foot on the ground. We dusted up the BASAs. We ensured that these BASAs were respected. And by the time they had to buckle under and considered that, Air Peace could start flying the routes, we knew we had achieved something. And then, of course, you'd see the results the immediate results that came, that prices immediately began to dip. But that's the most lucrative route we have in Nigeria. We have other routes coming up. We are looking at the American route. We are looking at the South American routes. So that is even not, they are not even flying South America at all now. Nobody, but something is in the offing for us to start that route now. So as to help the Nigerian flying public to bring down their prices. So that is just only one aspect of helping them to enforce the BASAs, ensure that you tell the country that these are our flag carriers, present them as your flag carriers, and so they respect them as Nigeria's representative, not as just private businesses in Nigeria. But the second aspect of that really is to ensure that these airlines can also have the capacity, after giving them the route, it's just wanting to give them the route, but how do you enhance their capacity to service that route? Is to ensure that they also have access to aircrafts, the same way that these big airlines around the world have access to aircrafts too. What we have now is that we have lower capacity to access those aircrafts, not to buy them. And I've said this is about the 100th time I'll say that no airline in the world buys its fleet 100%. They don't buy, they lease. So these big airlines you hear about, you see them with so many fleets, 150 planes. No, they have not bought. They're almost all of them on lease. 80% of them are on dry lease. So why are we not having access to these dry leases? Why? It is government's own fault. We have not created the atmosphere and the environment for foreign lessors to trust us, to trust our environment that their assets are safe here, and for them to give these assets to local operators. What have we done? We have gone to them to say, what can we do to give you the confidence, the comfort, and the assurance? What can we do? And they've told us 1, 2, 3, 4 things. We are working on them now. And thank God it's within my field. They say one is your judicial interference. We bring our aircrafts here, you go to court, you get injunction, you don't meet the obligations, you get injunction, and we can't take our aircrafts out. It has happened to so many, lessors before, and their aircrafts rot away here. We're talking of billions of dollars rot away here because of fraudulent nature of our internal businessmen. I said, don't worry. If you want an amendment to our laws to ensure that they cannot give injunctions to detain your planes, I'll give you that. And that we have gone far. I've brought in the Attorney General of the Federation, Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice of the Supreme Court. We are in the process. We are still going to announce something big in that respect to give them the comfort to bring in their planes here. On dry leases, they are getting planes on wet leases now. People should not mix the two. Planes are coming in now on wet leases, but that is why it is expensive, because you are talking about pricing. A wet lease is 3 times more expensive than a dry lease. A wet lease, they will bring in their crew, They are captain. That's why you see you fly Lagos, Abuja, and you see white girls in the plane. You see white man flying the plane. Those are wet leases. And one of the laws of wet leases is that anytime you park the plane, you must put full fuel inside. The tank must be full at every point in time. Why? Once there's any problem, or they'll kick out, they're out. They fly out. That is one of the. So it's very expensive, and then they pass all this burden to the passengers, and that's why you see tickets are very high locally. So it's not magic overnight. I will just come and tell them, lower your price from Enugu to Lagos. It's not going to happen. I see all the complaints coming in. I apologize. I'm begging Nigerians, wait. I will do something about it. The only thing I will do about it is to ensure that these local operators too, they also have low operating costs so that they don't pass on the burden to Nigerians. And that is what we are working on. The other one is insurance. I've talked about the dry lease. Insurance, the international lessors, they don't want the risk to be placed in the Nigerian market. I apologize to our insurance companies because they are watching me saying this, but they don't have the capacity for that kind of big market. The risk is high. The assets are very expensive. This plane. So the international lessors say they can't place the risk in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Insurance Commission.
NICOM.
Yes, NICOM says that all the risk must be placed in the Nigerian market in order to help our local insurance companies. However, if you give it to them, they go and do reinsurance because they can't carry the burden. So if you give it to them, they will now go outside the gate to reinsure because they cannot carry the burden. They don't have the capacity. And once they reinsure, it makes it more expensive. And they pass it on to the airlines, pass it on. And then even the lessors will not even agree. The international lessors say, okay, instead of that, let's do dry lease instead of ACMIs. So what do we do about that? We want to start to work on the insurance issue to appeal to them to say, look, can you, for the purpose for dry leases alone, allow them to put the risk on the international market, not on the local market, please, so that it will be cheaper, and then those will have confidence. That's what will give them the confidence to bring in their planes. So it's twin issues now, just to be very clear. Insurance and, of course, the Cape Town Convention. These are the two issues that crack that market, and then we can give our local operators access to these aircraft. So I'm very clear as to where we're going. And Nigerians will be very proud when we get to that destination.
Thank you very much, sir. You spoke about, opening up the South American and North American routes. But let's look at it. We're in Africa. Africa is a very huge market, and there's the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is coming into play. There's also the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, which allows, free flow of goods and services across the West African markets. I know a lot of airlines there are able to do Lagos-Abuja, Lagos-Kano, Lagos-Maiduguri. It also opens up the entire West African coast to them. And we see other West African airlines doing more flights into Nigeria from other countries the Nigerian airlines do not fly to. Is it the same problem that they're having?
Same problem. Same issue, same problem. Access to aircraft to challenge in these routes. You see some airlines in Nigeria, they're operating with 2 aircrafts. No, just 2. That's why you see flight delays everywhere. They cannot cover these routes. And I'm trying to tell them, don't sell tickets for those routes if you cannot cover those routes. And that's why the NCA they made a regulation now. You know that? The new regulation, I think, is from the beginning of this, from the middle of this year, or towards, I will get the date correctly for you, where they say you cannot start an airline now in Nigeria without six aircraft of certain standard. 6, to be sure that you are viable. You talked about mergers. Perhaps that will force them into merger. But that's the newest regulation that has been made. 6 aircraft to start an airline.
Okay. And recently, you're in the past 8 months, I think your ministry has run something called the Customer Complaints Resolution Units, and I see that they're doing a lot of work, in responding to customer complaints. But we're still having issues. There's the charter for passengers, the airline charter, the customer charter, and we are not still seeing, the airlines being responsive. I also know you came up with something earlier in the year where airlines had to publish weekly, their schedules and their performance in relation to certain KPIs. How do we really protect the consumers?
Well, there's a consumer protection department of the NCA, and I changed the leadership, by the blessing of Mr. President, changed the leadership of some of these agencies. So there's a new department that has come in with a lot of verve and enthusiasm, and they're working so hard. There's been jingles. I'm sure you've seen the jingles calling on people to report their complaints promptly. As we speak to you, so many reforms are going on, apologies and all of that, but that is still not enough. But it's somewhere to start from. We're just starting. And I think Nigerians should just give us some, like they say, give us some rope, to succeed. But I'm happy you have acknowledged that we've raised our game in that respect. We only find ourselves in some kind of quandary when it comes to delays and cancellations and all that. Do you clamp down these airlines? Because of that, you create more problem. You create more chaos because we are still managing them. And they are not enough. Like I said, they don't have access to their crafts. They have their problems. And sometimes, without telling the public, some of those delays are not their fault. They may be our fault. For example, we're trying to do something about bird strike now. Many of them experience bird strikes when they're about to take off. They pay taxes to us. And so we are supposed to make the air space safe for them to take off. So we are the ones, FAN is supposed to be the one clearing the birds, making sure that the birds don't interfere with flights. Sometimes it's weather. Sometimes they don't have quick access to jet A1 fuel and all that. So some of these factors are there. Sometimes weather, but sometimes it's their own fault too. So we are trying to, of course, in making compensation at times, we're trying to separate the issues. What caused this delay? What caused this cancellation? And on and on. So it's not entirely their fault in most cases. So it is always a difficult issue to sift through it, to say, well, we're coming down hard on you because you delayed or canceled your flight today. The best we can do for that is pay compensation, refund their money. That's the best. You can't clamp down on the whole airline. And the next day there'll be more chaos at the airport. So that's what we're trying to do. It's a delicate situation, but we're trying to wazzle through it.
I mean, I like what you've been saying so far because it shows that you're adopting a collaborative approach. And we've spoken about infrastructure, but there's still something. You can get the dry lease, but you still have issues with maintenance, and all that. You've recently visited Airbus, which was very interesting because of the video that came out on social media. And I know people try to take away from what you were doing there. Are there any plans to improve our capacity to do those maintenance here in Nigeria? Because that also drives down, the cost of doing business for the airlines. What are those plans, and how quickly do we intend to see those plans come into life?
Well, those are what you call the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. One of the key, policies we're looking at too, how to attract MROs into Nigeria. MROs, for people who don't know, they are just what they call the mechanic workshop for aeroplanes. Where can you tow them into, change their tire, change the oil, service them. That's what they call, like you do with your cars. Change the tire, overhaul the engine, make sure it is sound again. Like you service your car every 3 months or 4 months. Airplanes are like that too. They go for C checks, B checks, A checks. We don't have those facilities here. Some we have are for not the wide bodies. So we are talking about the maintenance facilities for the wide bodies. We have for helicopters, we have for some small bodies, but not big, not very as big as we want. What we want are the ones for the big bodies that can fly international routes. The whole of West Africa, none. The whole of Central Africa, none. We have, yes, the whole of here is as bad as that. So there's a huge market here for it. And that we're trying to tell the world that they should come and look at this huge market. What are we trying to do? We're trying to go around the world to see how they can come and invest. These manufacturing companies and investors, how they can bring them in here. And that is why I did my visit to Toulouse. I made it as dramatic as possible, deliberately. It wasn't by mistake. I deliberately released it. I released it deliberately, knowing the furore it will cause. But I said, let me make it dramatic. Let people understand what we're trying to do. And that was what I tried to achieve. And we achieved it. Look at all the airlines that were very happy about it. Air Peace, Ibom was there with me, Air Peace, United, they were all there and they were all happy. And they came back, and you can see that they were all excited about that visit because they knew I was trying to crack a very key issue for them. The two things we tried to crack by that, and we are in the process of doing that now, is to open up the market of MRO, to attract them, to say, look, these manufacturing companies, come and put MROs here. If you are selling your Airbuses to us, If Boeing, you are selling your aircraft to us, then you must put maintenance facilities here. Just like it happened to Pojo in those days. The PAN, I think they call it PAN.
In Kaduna.
In Kaduna, their assembly plants,
Yes,
and you know, yes.
in Lagos.
Exactly, and Lagos too. And also to tell the lessors, they were there, they came to meet us there, because the lessors work hand in hand with the manufacturing companies. They are the ones who take the planes from them with, you know, big investments, and financiers, I mean, they take the planes from them and then lease it out to different people around the world. So they were there to meet us in Toulouse, and they were very excited by our visit. And they asked us, are you now ready in Nigeria to ensure that our assets are safe? I said, yes, we are ready. They said, well, we are still waiting for the concrete results to bring your plane. So that's why I made it as dramatic as possible, to attract the world and the attention of everybody to what I was doing there. And well, it's paying off now. So that's the focus on that in that respect, to attract maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities to Nigeria. It will save us FX. We won't have to look for foreign exchange to service our international obligations, to take our planes out. Some of these planes, they go and queue up for 2 months in some MRO facilities, waiting for their turn to be dragged into for C checks. I mean, that is not right in a big country and continent like ours. Once we have that here, we have achieved a major breakthrough, and we're in the process of doing that.
So, Mr. President did something very interesting when he appointed you minister. He expanded the scope of the ministry from what it has always been known, which is aviation, to aviation and aerospace development. People would love to know, what are the plans on aerospace development? Does this include, you know, some space programs integration with?
No space program. The space program is with Minister of Science and Technology. The aerospace is to develop the whole of the aerospace.
Okay, so it's
not just the terminal building.
All encompassing.
And that's why we have gone back to the basics now. If you look at the 2024 budget, there is provision for master plans. The master plan is not to redesign the terminal building, but to redesign the whole of the metropolis. So we want to do it for all our airports, but we are starting with the 5 international airports. And so our advert that will come out very soon, our advert for calling for expressions of interest will involve, of course, the master plans for our 5 international airports. We are looking for the best consultants in the world, design consultants, to come and give us some presentation as to how we can turn around, you know, the whole of the metropolis for these 5 international airports, so that we know exactly in terms of development where we are going in a very conscious and deliberate manner. Not this kind of knee-jerk development we are doing all over the place now. So that once we finish with this, most likely this year or next year, you will see a clear plan as to the next 30 or 40 years development plan. We may not do it all at once, but you know that these are stages. Phase 1 will be there. Is it to put a second terminal or a third terminal, or to put a second runway? You will see that design. First phase. You go to the next phase, maybe the next 10 to the next 15 years, the next 15 to 20 years. And as you are doing that, you are taking into cognizance the expansion of the traveling public. Now we're doing about 16 million. We have to plan for 40 million in the next 10, 15 years. And all of that infrastructure will take into cognizance the future expansion. The future expansion and the traffic too. So that's what we want to do, and that is the plan for the metropolis. We're coming out with master plans.
So still speaking about your master plan, I know many young Nigerians especially have expressed frustration with the sprouting of airports in almost every state. You know, is there a way the ministry intends to, you know, work more closely with state governments intending to do this, and, you know, find a way of diverting their attention? So, for instance, rather than a state has 3 contiguous states that has airports within it, rather than building another airport, can you build an MRO facility, and the ministry will find partners for you? You
cannot build an MRO. You see, that's why I educate you about.
Okay.
You will have an airport to build an MRO. Where would the plane land to be dragged into the
No, MRO? I know. I'm saying that rather than it being an airport for commercial purposes.
Once you put a runway there, people should land there now. It's social service. You should understand that airports are not just for commercial viability in a country like ours. It's for social service too. It's to ensure that people have access to all parts of the country.
But there are complaints that some of these airports do not even have commercial flights going into them.
Yeah, they may not be full airports, but they should have an airstrip because of contingencies.
Emergencies and everything.
Emergencies. There may be a crisis in that place. There may be a crisis in that part of the country. How do you carry food supplies there? How do you drop food supplies? There should be at least an airstrip for somebody to land, drop food supply in case of war, in case of famine, in case of flood. Not that you are trying to access another state that is more than how many kilometers away. You land in one state and you cannot go through because of flood, because a bridge has broken down. You cannot reach the people with emergency facilities. So you should understand that in a complex country like ours, some of these airstrips are just for social purpose. It's social service to the people. And that's why in the new budget, we have also creation of building of new airstrips in the 6 geopolitical zones. Okay. For those states that don't have, for example, in the east, Abia does not have. Abia has no airport, has no landing strip, nothing. We put one there for them. In the whole of the southwest, Oshogbo has been suffering. Osun State, Ogun has now, Ekiti has, Lagos have, but not Osun. Excuse me. So we'll put one for Osun there. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I like the perspective to that. So, Honorable Minister Keyamo, in December, was it November or December last year, President Bola Tinubu met the UAE president to try to resolve, pending issues between Nigeria and the UAE with respect also to aviation. The news came out then. A lot of people felt the changes were going to happen immediately. But, those of us who understand the way government works know that there's always a process after 2 presidents at the sovereign level must have agreed on something. Can you please run us through, at a high level, what you've done so far and what the state is as of now? Are we expecting a resolution to this, anytime soon? Is there any progress being made? And how soon can Nigerians begin to, have access to fly directly to the UAE?
Well, after that high-level meeting, Mr. President, credit to him, he has been the star boy of this process. He made things very easy for all of us. And we did our follow-ups as his ministers, as his foot soldiers. We have done everything. We have resolved everything. Just wait for the announcement from the UAE, and that announcement is imminent very soon. They will announce. I want to give it to them to announce the date. I know the date already.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I know the date, but I want to give it to them. I don't want to fall into that trap of rushing to the media, but I know the date already. But I'm giving them the preference. I'm giving them, that right to announce the date. So I expect an announcement from them very soon.
So thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I know you have a little bit of a cold, and I'm really stressing your voice, but...
You are stressing me.
Yes, I do know that. But Nigerians, we are working for the benefit of the Nigerian people, and come rain, come shine, they expect us to work.
Yeah.
One question I find interesting, and this on the soft side, is that you're probably the most senior minister. No, you are the most senior minister in terms of having served, now 2 presidents, ongoing, unbroken. I would like to, and it's quite a personal question, can you run us through, what do you think? Are there any differences in their styles of governance and relating with the ministers?
Wait till I write my book when I leave office.
Maybe you should give us an insight.
When I write my book.
Okay, no wahala.
You will see the 2 there.
No wahala. But I also want to know, in a brief nutshell, in a summary, can you tell us your vision? Where do you expect to see this ministry in the next, 4 years or 3 years now, as the case is? And it's 1 year, May 29th, since this government has been in power.
I will not be in ministers were not sworn in until
very
end
true,
of August.
Very true, very
so
true.
Mine is 8 months.
Let me know what your future plan is, your vision is, and what challenges do you think you would face, in a nutshell?
Well, my vision is encapsulated in the 5-point agenda. That is a clear vision where we are going. Now, even when we cannot achieve everything, government is always a continuum. So I'm not under any illusion that I'm going to come into office and achieve everything that you should achieve in the aviation sector. But at least my vision is that at the end of my tenure, I would have shown a clear path as to where we are going. I would have achieved, of course, a lot. I would not have achieved everything, but I would have achieved a lot and set a clear path as to where this industry should be going in the next few years.
So that's sustainable growth over,
absolutely. In terms of the 5-point agenda, a clear path as to where we're going. For instance, I expect that before we leave office, even if I cannot turn around all the 5 international airports, I expect that we would have signed agreements with concessionaires. They would have started work on these airports. They would have finished maybe phase 1, phase 2, and we'll know exactly where we're going in terms of infrastructure. In terms of safety standards, I expect that I would have put my foot on the ground to the extent that Nigerians will feel very safe flying within our space. The regulators will be strengthened, regulators will do their job, and of course, ICAO's audits will clear us and give us high marks. I'm working so hard on that next time ICAO comes, the other time we scored 70, the last audit of ICAO, but South Africa scored 92.
Wow.
But we scored 70. And that was just 1 point movement from what we scored earlier, which was 69%, 2 or 3 years ago. Then we now moved up just 1 point. I said, no, that's not enough. I want to see us edge close to 100% in terms of our safety standards in the airport. So that is my vision for safety and its standards. For support of local airlines, like I said, I want to ensure before I leave that two or three key things happen. One, that our local airlines now have access to dry leases across the world. And so we'll have enough airplanes. And even many people can start an airline. You can start an airline with your friends because you don't need all the money in the world to buy the planes. Put a small deposit in, take 6 planes from a big company on dry lease, you started. Every month you are paying. It's like hire purchase. You are paying back every monthly. They can say pay back $1 million or $500 million every month. You can make that money and be paying it every month back to the lessors. You can start an airline. And my dream is that, so that we can liberalize that space. It won't look like a closed market.
Yes,
a closed market. The MROs, I want to ensure that at least the one MRO is near completion or completed before I leave office. Thank God, Ibom Air is going to give me a low-hanging fruit on that. Ibom Air has done so well with their big wide-body MRO. They are like 80% complete or 90% complete, and I hope to commission that before I leave office. So these are my dreams, not to do everything, but to go to, to get some, traction before I leave office.
In concluding this interview, sir, in one word, what is your message to Nigerians as relates to your ministry?
Have faith. Keep hope alive. You are safe. You are safe in my hands. In the hands of Asiwaju, with the Renewed Hope agenda, you are safe within our airspace. So long as we do what is right, you are safe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
God bless you.